Welcome to the Fly Culture Podcast, bringing you interviews, reviews, and fishing tips. Here's your host, Pete Tigus.
Hi everyone, this is the Fly Culture Podcast. I'm Pete Tigus, and I'm really pleased to be joined today. My guest is a sea trout angler extraordinaire. He's a photographer, he's an author, he's a fly tyer, he's a traveller. I'm sure I've missed loads off that list, but today I'm really pleased to be joined by Steffan Jones. Steffan, it's great to catch up with you. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. I hasten to add, I do all of those badly. I do them all, but differing levels of success in all of them. But yeah, no, really well, thank you. And I know we've been trying to do this for a few months. It's even given me the impetus to clean my man cave. I know it doesn't look like it. This is clean. You can ask my wife. She'll be well impressed when she gets back from work. But yeah, I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while. So thanks for the opportunity.
You're most welcome. And obviously, we're going to come on to the book and sea trouting and stuff like that. But looking at the pictures of you fishing back end when the rivers were open, it seemed to me as though you had a pretty good time with the salmon as well.
I had more time this year, so I think it was perhaps deceiving. It was a strange one. So if you look at just whales in general, so I'm not a species snob, but we'll probably move on to that later. So I'm very seasonal. What's there to be caught and what should be caught at certain times of year, that's usually what I kind of gravitate towards at different times of the year. But yeah, definitely back end. I switch off the sea trout or sea win, and let them do what they nature intends them to do, and then tend to switch onto the salmon. The Tybee, historically, phenomenal back end river. The autumn run was the run. The last few years just hasn't materialized at all. But this season in general is just a strange one. Just looking at Wales on the whole from the salmon perspective. The South Wales rivers, or those that kind of went into the Bristol Channel, as it were, had on the whole a phenomenal salmon season. So the Towie was just crazy. No rhyme or reason, just a crazy salmon. You could talk to most boys and they were catching more salmon than sea trout. Which talk about the Towie, it's regarded as one of the principal sea trout rivers in the UK, if not Europe. But the South Wales rivers there, the Usk had a great year. Why not so much, but it tends to be bottom end. Again, not sure what's going on there for the past few years. Just tends to be bottlenecking of more. Just quite a few of those rivers has had a phenomenal run of salmon, and actually some of them did really well on the sea trout front. And then just the Cardiff and Bay rivers, the West Wales rivers, didn't materialize. You were putting time into. I know the water. I fished this river for 30-something years. Even though it's this and the Towie is like the two longest rivers that start and end in Wales. You're talking about 80 miles long or something. So they're long rivers, but you know where you need to be when, and which, like in any fishing, it's a big factor. But no, they didn't materialize. The fish we were catching were late spring, early summer fish. So stales. Most of them were stale spring, to be fair. Last season, you were getting right to the end. Last week of the season, got a couple of really fresh fish. But this year, didn't get on them. But they were all big fish. I only had one under 10 pounds. So they were big fish, but just not a big run, and just virtually no back end run.
Yeah, it was interesting what you say there. Our home river, and I've touched on it before, that it was tough going. And I think we're only going to return something 120 fish for the whole river. And, it felt like you say it was similar, that it was fish. It was almost like musical chairs, that the fish were just moving up the river rather than fish were coming through. And it only felt as one time we were on that this pulse of fish came through, which was really exciting. And then that was about it. And as you know, I'm sure you put in a lot of hours, and we'd put in a lot of hours for not a great deal, really. But that's doesn't bother me too much. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play through the next year. And obviously on the podcast, and we talked about it off mic as well, that we did with Paul Yaver and Andy, that the state of fishing as a whole, and a few people sort of kind of, and rightly mentioned so about states of rivers and fish runs. And do you sense there is a little tiny glimmer of hope? And that's against the background of seeing this wanton destruction that we saw on the lug recently as well. And, you know, that how people are actually now going after, when we're seeing these things happen, the more people are being engaged by that. Do you think we'll start to see more of that, and that start to have a little bit of an impact?
I hope so. Because God do we need it? It is also getting the powers that be to stand up and grow a spine. And I can certainly talk about specifically in Wales, and it's from the local and from a central perspective as well. It's quite frankly embarrassing. We do what we can so on the ground, and to be honest, the number of anglers, or certainly the last few years, the numbers of anglers on the ground has been dwindling as well. But essentially, we are the eyes on the water, whether those outside of the angling fraternity appreciate it or not. We are out there. We spot things probably quicker than anybody else, and usually fight things. There's a fantastic. I don't want to get into the canoeing debate, but there is a fantastic canoeing place here in Llandyssil. But when it comes to pollution stuff, you never see them, for example. They're in the water. They're literally getting water on their faces and in their mouths and stuff when they're canoeing. You never see anybody really fighting when, Jesus, we had more than our share of incidents on the Teifi over the last 4 years. We had 2 anaerobic digesters, one that killed 6 miles of the upper river, and this, that, and the other. So, and then, God, you could be so doom and gloom about all this. You see fish eating birds and numbers increasing every year. You see, we still have 15 illegal nets working our river. You've got 12 coracle, which is 24 coracles, in fact, working the river, 3 seine licenses working the estuary. None of these without quotas. I think if a lot of these things were addressed, or certainly were done to a sustainable degree, pollution's not done to a sustainable degree, obviously, excess fish, the quota systems or whatever. I think if a lot of these things were addressed, I'm just talking, specifically within this locality or neighbouring rivers, Teifi and Towie, I think we would have a very different story. And the reason why I can say that with some authority as well is we look at what is increasing in our river, and again, I specifically talking about the Teifi here, and that's our brown trout. The brown trout and the grayling. Not many people know about the grayling in this river. You look at the quality of sort of vertebrate life here since cypermethrin was banned, and since they, to a larger degree, have stopped using it on the forestries as well. You just look at our invertebrate levels, and hatches are just through the roof. And without, doesn't take much, brain matter to work out that the fish are. The fishing is improving off the back of that. So we have now a phenomenal brown trout fishery. Look at that there. I think it could be. But then also you look down. Then I fished the South Wales rivers I went to uni down in Cardiff, so I spent 5-6 years down there. You look at the industrial rivers, how they've come back. So we are talking more, again, this is more to do in Wales. You talk about the old industrial rivers are now hitting kind of that renaissance. They are hitting that golden era. A lot of youth coming through, a lot of phenomenal youth anglers coming through as a result. The fish are there to be caught in the first place. Starting off in the sport, sure, you and I, Pete, we don't mind a challenge like you're talking about the salmon. You can go a couple of days, not get a tape. Okay, it's the name of the game. You get that. Starting off, you need something on the line, and it again, no coincidence that a lot of those South Wales rivers, they are gaining traction with a lot of younger anglers because they have good numbers of trout, good numbers of grayling, fantastic trout fishing. So it's getting the beginners and then the more experienced, because there are some trophy trout to be caught down there. those rivers have cleaned up. Sure, they're still running through, big town cities, whatever, but it's more the farming pollution rather than industrial pollution. So those rivers, I was talking about the Ogmore earlier, for example, all those rivers down in that section, and also you talk about the likes of the Usk, even where it tends to run through big estates. We're talking about the big shooting estates and all this kind of stuff. They don't tend to get that level of intensive farming either. So even the likes of the Usk is doing really well. And so yeah, it is, but there is still when if you live in an unfortunate area, or you get to see unfortunate things, it's you see how many issues still need to be addressed, really.
It's interesting, going back a tiny bit there, that you mentioned about the netting, and that kind of goes against everything that's happening in a lot of other places as well, isn't it? That, netting, nets have been bought out. And I think I was reading recently that they quietly started buying nets out in Victorian times, actually. And, that's a story that seems to be bucking a trend, really, that has changed in more recent times, certainly, isn't it? I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah, and most people, when you tell them that, they are surprised when you talk about decline of species. You're talking about nets taking salmon in at the middle of the night, which the corals predominantly, for example, work at night. So they're taking a salmon in, species identification after being netted, and then releasing it back. Good luck, and all this kind of stuff. But it's not even that, if I want to speak. It's not even about the extremes, as it were. It's not about just doing away with nets. The Tybee is the most heavily netted river in the UK. I'm saying we have 15 nets that operate without quotas for their allotted season. So they get as many tags as they want from NLW. No matter how low the river is, so the fish going up and down with the tide doesn't matter. But it's not even that. It is the sustainability aspect. So it's not about, and these guys, and I know a couple of them really well, good guys, really are, some of them. And it's the same as the angling, rod and line fraternity. You get, there's a few that ruin it or whatever. But it's, some of the guys see the sustainability aspect because they see actually without the fish, they don't have a future either. And it's the same as us. We don't have fish. We don't have a future. So they understand the sustainability aspect. Some just see the bottom, they see the money aspect, and that's it. I think it's the same as rod and line. Some anglers would literally kill the last fish that ran in the it's sad to say, but they would. Others just see the sustainability aspect, and so it's not about kind of finishing netting per se. It's about sustainability. It's about achieving sustainability. Getting NLW to wake up before it's too late, before it actually hits rock bottom, then you have to do something. Oh yeah, we need to do something now. You're like, well, no, now is the time to do it before you can see the trend, you can see what's happening. But also, these guys do a really great service. I'm talking specifically again from the nets, from the poaching perspective. So they do control illegal netting. We've had two big. We had a case. One guy was caught earlier in the year, red-handed, and then I think it was 2-3 weeks later there were 7 houses that were raided in the area, and I think there was 37 officers or something involved in the raids. And it's a big thing. But at the end of the day, when these fish are fetching the money they do, it's always going to attract illegal. And, so it's sad that it does still exist, but it's even sadder that, again, the powers that be that produce the figures that highlight what's happening do not act on the figures they produce. That's mind-boggling to me. They have the duty of care, and they produce the stats that indicate what they need to do, but no. It's slowly changing as we've seen what's come through on the salmon perspective. But then when they introduce things on the salmon perspective, they need so many loopholes that you just say, most of these guys are just saying, the guys you want to control, you're not controlling, because they just say, I'm fishing for brown trout. They can do whatever they want in the river. They can fish as many trebles as they want. They can fish as many worms as they want. They can do whatever they want. They're not fishing for brown trout. That's all they have to say if they ever get questioned. So the thing is, again, with NRW, you tell them this before anything is introduced, and it's just they just carry on regardless of any meetings you attend, or and it's demoralizing, and you kind of think, what's the point? But if you give up, who's won? What certainly not the river, which is essentially like the blood in your system. You get born and raised on the river, and it becomes your child, and you want to look after that, and you will fight for it. And a lot of people do. Doesn't always do as much good, but you're just hoping that the next email or the next whatever you do is the one that breaks the back and achieves change.
There's some really good points there, Steph, and it's interesting what you're saying there, because it does feel as though the volume, as I've said on other podcasts as well, is turning up. We've just got to keep turning it as high as we possibly can and continue. I still believe, I wonder if there is a way of protesting outside, be it the water companies or the agencies as well. The government agencies, and making it clear what's going on. And so it forces their hand to a degree that they've just got to continue to act and do things about it. And I've got friends, I'm sure you have, that work within the EA, and, they tell me that they're doing everything they possibly can. And a friend of mine, I know he is. And, it is... At that level, it seems to be at a managerial level, doesn't it, or a board level, even higher up, that these things are not being implemented and just need to be sorted out, don't they?
It's a cancer. I'm sorry to say, but it is a cancer from the top. You hit the nail on the head there. There are some amazing people on the ground, and I will never take that away from them. They're literally, local here, amazing people on the ground, and you attend the meetings, you chat to some of the lower end guys. They see it because they are the people that are living and breathing it. They're on the river. They see everything that's happening. They understand, and they're compassionate as a result. It's almost like it gets fed up one level, and it just gets diluted. By the time you get to the top of the triangle, I'm not sure if it's, I can say everything, but it just gets lost. And it's so frustrating when you sit in front of these guys, and you can, they'll put quotes up, for example, within the meetings you attend. It's like, well, that's obviously lying, because you're doing the opposite. So how can you even stand there with the audacity to say that? And you pull them out on it, and they go, oh we're trying our best. But it's not, and it is, don't get me wrong, a lot of the time as well, it's passed through from central government. They're saying anything stuff with us. They're getting stripped of resources. But what they're left with, unfortunately, is policy writers. They're not left with policy deliverers. They're left with people that can fight fires, and not actually achieve the hell they want, which is sad, because they also then, they lose a lot of great people. I know a lot of people that have left NRW as well, fantastic people, immensely talented people. The sad thing is, those people, they kind of feel themselves hitting heads against a brick wall, and they're kind of like, life's too short for this. I need to get somewhere where I can actually achieve something. And then you're just left with, again, people from the same apple cart, or certainly at levels, people from the same apple cart. I say I'm not doing any disservice to those on the ground. I think they need a hell of a lot more of them, but they need a hell of a lot more support as well, rather than being thrown here, there, and everywhere. You're looking at entire river systems with one person trying to police. You look at around here, you've got the headquarters up in NRW, up in Lampeter. So if the guys up in Lampeter, there's an issue down in Kilgare, Lanfechrid, Cardigan, whatever, it's going to take him 3 quarters of an hour to get down there. They've done the damage within 3 quarters of an hour. They're out of there, and probably it's in the marketplace by that time. So there's so many. There's a lot of the thing is, there's a lot of simple issues that can be addressed short term, and there's a lot of things that need to be addressed long term. But it doesn't seem to be there's any strategy. It just seems to be talking, writing papers, and not actually delivering, which is frustrating. And it's almost like by the time the new administration comes through, oh, no, we're not doing what they did. We're actually reinventing. This is our new thing. And it's almost by the time they come to the end of all that, when it should have been delivered, oh, no, there's new people in now. We're doing this. But that actually never actually comes to fruition. It just gets passed on. But the only thing that suffers is, essentially our rivers and, the wildlife that depend on our rivers. We're not just talking about fish. You're talking about that whole ecosystem that depends on all of that. So it's the knock-on effects, and then you're looking at their knock-on effects to rural economies. And what people need to realise as well is, you live in these rural economy areas. Tourism you're talking about the Teifi alone. The sea trout fishery on the Teifi alone, you're talking about from a rod and line perspective, worth £1 million a year back in 1998. Now, you're talking about a quarter of that. So you need to understand the ramifications of that to your rural economies, and you don't invent something else to rejuvenate or bring. Those fish just need to be there. People just need the chance of catching a fish. We have a beautiful river. We have a beautiful river valley setting, everything. That only carries you so far. You still need to catch or have the opportunity to see fish. You don't get. The fish were there to be caught. You're not seeing fish, or you come year after year for 10 years, and don't get me wrong, we're still seeing fish. But the problem is, the majority of the fish we are seeing are the fish that get through. The nets, for example, the slot sizing of the nets, they literally target the broodstock. So you are literally targeting essentially as fish of 2.5 pounds and above. The average size, so the nets here will take anywhere from 400 to 1,000 sea trout, averaging £4 a year. And essentially then, I'm the chairman of the local angling club here, Fencer Angling, and over the last few years we've introduced super stringent rules which, if you listen to the doom mongering, they'll tell you, you're going to lose all of your membership, nobody's going to come fishing. Actually, to the contrary, we've gained members. They've seen that we're doing the right thing to try and protect stocks. I think the doom and gloomers are starting to get quietened or deafened out essentially by people who are saying, oh, that's not the case. So we've now where we've had to ban bait fishing because of so many loopholes. For example, so we banned that, started this year, but we thought, to be frank, and I'm going to make a few enemies here, we actually thought that NRW should have done that anyway, because a salmon cannot differentiate between a bait that's destined for a brown trout or for them, so you just can't do it. So we banned that. We just banned trebles, because again, otherwise people will just say, I'm fishing for brown trout. How do you police that? You can't. So we just banned trebles. We introduced an upper length limit of 45 centimeters on sea trout. Limit of, what are we on now, 5 a season. Compulsory catch and release after the end of August. Just things that needed to be done anyway. We just need to move with the times. We need to move with declining stocks and stuff, and just safeguard broodstock. They're our future. You talk about a sea trout that may, it's not like a salmon. A sea trout may spawn 7, 8 or more times in its life. You talk about the egg deposition year after year after year. You're not just releasing that fish for spawning that winter. You may be doing it for the next 7, 8 years or more. And it's those fish we need to try and get through. So we do, to an extent, we control 30 miles of the river. So when they're in our waters, we like to think that they're pretty looked after, or trying to stop people from enjoying the river. We're just trying to protect the future so they can keep enjoying it and for future generations, the custodians for all future generations. So it's a lot about that, but it's it's doing what we can with the limited resources or whatever that we have. But we do wish that those that are in power would step up, support us, and do what's needed for the future.
Yeah, They're really, really interesting points, Steph, and really well made. And, I get that sort of sense. And you said something very interesting then, moving with the times. And as you say, the times have changed. Our side of the fence, we all understand that. It's trying to keep making sure those people, that other side of the fence that you've alluded to there, do listen to that. And that's it, isn't it? And we've just got to keep screaming and shouting, haven't we?
We do, and the sad thing is, again, what gets fed to the likes of central government and the same as from the likes of NRW. Sometimes I've got to be honest, I question that, because I do talk with the local MP, the local AM and stuff, and when they just get handed a sheet of paper, they don't understand what's behind that. Yeah, there's a terrible thing that was introduced a few years ago called CPUE, which is catch per unit effort, which is the biggest load of tribe I've ever seen. So it was actually ridiculous. It was, unit effort was literally, I could walk down the bottom of my garden, have a cast, and that's a unit. Or I could fish 24 hours a day, and that's still 1 unit. And then within that, the catch could not differentiate between salmon and sea trout. So it was all just bundled into one, and they would just come out with these whatever at the end. And you're just like, well, no, that's pathetic, to say the least. Sure, that's the best thing they had to work with. But also, that's their fault that it's the best thing they had to work with. If that's the information they asked for, of course, that's what you're going to have to work with. So it was things like that, but they were feeding that through and saying, oh, look, catch per unit effort, and then they were doing your at-risk status based on that, for example. And it's like, you can't, because you can't even tell what the angler was fishing for in the first place to get that unit effort. And it's just stuff like that. You feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall. Where my background, I've got a degree in town and country planning and a master's in housing. I'm not a fishery biologist or some mathematician. It's common sense and logic. You just like. And then that's what I don't get at times when you do attend these LFG, local fishery groups and all this kind of stuff. You just attend them and are you just trying to come up with figures to make things look better? And I do fear that at times that's what happens. They just pass that through to central government and go, listen, this is great. Look, this percentage, that percentage, we're all fine. But then I try and get meetings with certainly the local politicians to explain to them behind the scenes what's going on, trying to, rather than treating them, don't get me wrong, I understand they've got their plate full, but also not being patronizing. These are intelligent people. Don't just give them the face stats, show them a little behind the scenes as well, because they can come up with their own opinions. You don't need to force their opinion upon them. And that's what I try and do. I try and break things down. So I've created a couple of reports on that front, which I've also sent through to the likes of Salmon Trout Conservation, sent through to Angling Trust, all those guys, just try and get a few more, anybody that can lobby the better, basically. But to get a true reflection of what's going on, rather than just taking everything on face value that gets passed through to them. I think we have that duty, if we truly care about, again, what we are passing to future generations. I got 2 young kids now. I don't want them turning back to me when they're 20 or something, saying, Dad, what happened? Why didn't you fight for this? Or why didn't, or even worse, what did you do? And you just stand there going, what did I?
Yeah. There is so much more we could talk about on that front. But I think that's given some really interesting subjects and topics for people to think about as well. And I'm sure they're thinking exactly the same as we are too. I want to take things in a slightly different direction now. And amongst many other things, you're obviously synonymous with sea trout. And I was interested to know where that path started for you. Did it start with sea trout, or did you go via trout? Where did you really get that sort of thing for the sea trout?
From a crime perspective, I think it's 10 years you can't get done for that crime. I think it's something similar. I was a trout tickler, Pete. In winters past, it was my father teaching me how to tickle. Again, it sounds ironic given the slight lecture I've just given. It was many, many years. You talk about more years than I care to remember, over 3 decades ago. But yes, I would tickle sea trout that were running to spawn in front of my parents' place, basically. So that's probably and I remember my father, there's a junction of two small rivers. I remember him tickling a nice sea trout, probably around 3-4 pounds, and chucking it out, and me catching it. And I still have this, I still recall it really vividly, the sea trout slapping me in my face. So I think I vowed vengeance from that day to kind of get my revenge on them. But all joking aside, I started on tributaries. Basically, my father never fly fished, only basically bait fished on small streams. But I tell you what, you talk about rivercraft, amazing. Yeah, just learning rivercraft, seams, currents, where fish would lie, where they wouldn't lie, different levels, all this kind of stuff. It was just a fantastic upbringing, and it's bringing that whole thing good stead to this day. So that's how it all started. It was tickling trout, and then basically worming the small streams. Moving on then. Local angling club, again, the one I'm chairman of now, Tennyson Angling Association. Throughout the summer months, even to this day, they provide free casting, fly tying, fishing lessons for local kids from age 8 to 16, I think, or something similar. And that's how I started. So many moons ago, it was Pat O'Reilly, which many will know from the likes of Matching the Hatch, and a gent called Derek Hoskins. Yeah, they used to do lessons in the park. So I'm basically the fruit of their labour from donkeys years ago. And then there was a gent named Peter Jones who would do fly tying lessons in the local school, night lessons basically. And he took me under his wing. He started me fly tying, and started me off night fishing. So I still recall. So he just a fantastic teacher who I owe a great deal to. But that's how I came through the rankings, as it were. But or how I stumbled on it. I was born 15 minutes from the Towie and 10 minutes from Tyward. So if you were getting into fishing, with fishing, if you are interested in fishing, you're a product of your environment to a certain degree. So what's on your doorstep? And that's why I hate species snobbery. Where you've come from doesn't mean where you're going. If you were fortunate to be born on the banks of a chalk stream or a magnificent salmon stream, or just salmon river or whatever, it doesn't give you the right to talk down to somebody then who's been bobbing for perch on a canal. If that's how they started life, great, good on them. They're a product of their environment. If that's what they had at their disposal, enjoy it. And that's why I'm definitely not a species snob myself. I'll chase if it's wet. I'll give it a cast basically. But I love sea trout, of course I do. That's my main passion because they can infuriate you like nothing else, and there's so much to learn and so much left to learn, and you can just make it complicated or as complicated as you want, but it's in a nutshell, it's a product of the environment.
I like what you say about the species snobbery thing, and I think it is like it's your home water, isn't it? No matter where it is, that's special to you, and that's how you judge, and you love it, and it makes you appreciate when you get to go to other places as well. But it was interesting what you were saying about how you started, how you first picked up that fly rod. And then I was reading somewhere that you actually started, obviously the fly fishing angle bit very, very deeply with you. And I read that you were actually guiding sea trout at the age of 15. Is that right? And do you remember it well?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I even remember the first people I guided. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so. I even recall that I think it was the following night they caught an eel at night. I recall it was literally a very different time. A very different time. Yeah, literally my parents would drop me off for the guiding, and then the clients would have to drive me home. Yeah, literally before I could drive. It was the local hotel, just few doors down, the Porth Hotel. They would come back in and say, "Oh, there's this young kid. He's going down the pool and catching all the fish, but we haven't caught anything." And basically, they found out it was me, and they thought, right, we better try and control this one. So basically, they asked me, "Do you want to take people out fishing?" And that's how it started. So it's a very natural thing. It's not something I pursued per se to begin with. But yeah, when I was 15, made some amazing friends over the years, and yeah, still have the drive, passion, enthusiasm, whatever you want to call it, to this day. I'm still guiding 25 years later, still loving it. But I think it's the same as you. I know you've guided for donkeys years. You've probably the same mentality. I get as much, if not more, enjoyment out of people catching a fish than I do myself at times. And it helps you relive or rekindle that kind of the early memories, or even that first memory of your first sea trout. They say you never forget your first salmon, you never forget your first sea trout either. Just to almost live that through new eyes is an amazing feeling. And if things aren't happening, I'm more frustrated than call them clients. I don't really like the term clients. It's I guess in that situation they are, but it's again, many become amazing friends. But it's you try. Most of them are knackered by the end of the night. I'll be honest. I'm just trying everything just to try and get things to happen if they're not happening. And it's like, all right, come on, here, and all this kind of stuff. But 25 years, and I've told myself I've got a very simple rule. The day I, at the start of the evening, I'm feeling I particularly want to go out tonight. If I ever get to that stage, I'll just stop. But 25 years in, not still as enthusiastic, and still the drive is strong. So.
The enthusiasm thing's really interesting. And I always used to say to people, if 10% of my enthusiasm rubs off on you, that's going to be enough. That'll take you through. But it must have been amazing as a 15, 16-year-old that people were paying you to take them fishing. That must have been pretty cool. Better than a paper round, I guess.
Yeah, a bit surreal. And it's like, you pay me to, especially nowadays. For the past probably, over the 25 years, probably the last 20 of the 25 years, I never even take a rod out with me. Obviously, so much things go wrong so quickly. But the early days, it was literally the case of fishing with rather than guiding per se. Nowadays, it's very much, doing the leaders, untangling leaders occasionally. Obviously, getting the occasional tree trout sorted, and there's so much to do. But in the early days, it was also the case of fishing with the clients, and that was very odd. And then getting paid at the end as well. It's like, okay, cool, thank you. It did seem odd to say the least, but it gave me a fantastic grounding, and also it helps you, watch from outside the box. So if you're fishing, sometimes you get so preoccupied in just doing what you're doing, and that's the great thing about fishing. So at least you don't end up thinking too much about anything else other than being in that moment. But when you're guiding, you're analyzing, and I think from the perspective, for example, my book, it helped me. It taught me a hell of a lot more about the fish, what was going on, and also gave me more time to think about things as well. Like, okay, why are they doing that, and how can I kind of compensate or capitalize at times on what was materializing. And I think if you're perhaps fishing and you're just in the zone and you almost become monotonous working down a pool or something, you don't have that time to analyze what's going on. So I think guiding helped me gain a better understanding. And again, that's probably why I love it as much as well. You just get to see a lot and just get to absorb a lot more and enjoy a different aspect of the sport.
And so I guess May, June, July, you live a pretty nocturnal existence, do you?
hence my pale. No, it's but no, I'm not a species snob. Nowadays, if you went days gone by, I'd be out there April, May, doing this, that, and the other. Nowadays, no, because I know I'm missing out on amazing trout fishing at the start. So I tend to, I think if there's a night that particularly suits sea trout fishing, if I see an early season night that's got the overcast conditions, it's going to be mild, blah, blah, blah. Sure, I'll give it a go. But otherwise, no, that especially now the trout fishing's got so good on the Tybee. That May fishing, you can't drag me away from my trout fishing at that time of year. The olive uprights, for example, that for me is not of our stream, the other Freestone Rivers, the olive uprights. Hatch, building on. We don't really get the March Browns and stuff over here. Don't really get the Cook Duns. So the main first hatch with us is big hatch. After the Grandhams, we get which the Tiger was synonymous with, the Grandham hatch. It tends to be the olive uprights and yellow maize. Trout go crazy for yellow maize on this river as well. So honestly, it doesn't tend to be until into June before I really switch on to. But even then, I'm capitalizing on the evening trout fishing. So I'm targeting them on the drugs before switching on to they dovetail. So you're getting the best of the day trout fishing, and then which is great. But I'm not a June, July, and definitely August. Those 3 months, from the guiding perspective and personal fishing. And it's a short season, so you have to capitalize on it. Otherwise, you kind of blink and you miss it.
Yeah. Coming back to the trout very quickly, you talked about the Granham and stuff like that. Is that when the trout really start to rise, or is it before then? Do you get them? Because I know some of the rivers, obviously in the south there, that, like you say, March Browns, etc., are the hatches, large darks, are when the fish start to rise. At home, for me, it's usually the Granham that is the sign that trout. So is it similar for you?
100%. Yeah. But again, so fortunate, within an hour, I have some amazing rivers. And it tends to be, you can even see some of the South Wales rivers warm up quicker. So when I fish the Usk, I haven't done this year for obvious reasons, but I fish the Usk a hell of a lot. But where I fish the Usk is, I tend to very much concentrate between Sennybridge and Brecon. But it tends to take longer to warm up. You go on the March Browns and you have, it's only 20 minutes of good fishing. And it's too far. To be honest, it's too far just to justify going for 20 minutes. And, so I just then tends to be, and the Tybee is the same, so we don't have the March Brown, but yes, the Granham. If the Granham's there, it's prolific enough. Yeah, we have clouds on the Tybee, literally clouds. But we have clouds of them, so there is definitely more than enough to drag the fish up. But again, I have access, and it's so phenomenal fishing on the South Wales rivers, which is so cheap. So I join these clubs, maybe £50 a season, and I hit them. I travel down, I fish what's fishing well. I know the Tybee will kick in probably late April, early May, and then I can kind of switch back and focus on that when I don't really see the olive upright. That's when I really switch onto the Tybee fish. But before that, the large brook duns, March Browns and everything, just a lot of those South Wales, Tower, the Tafts. Of course, I don't go over to but then the Usk for me is certainly where I fish it, just slightly later again. And you just go there. The Tybee, you can fish land to bridge and up from March 3rd. It's if you want to catch a fish, you probably just be nipping or streamer fishing or something. But it's not mine. I'd rather not, if I can help it. But there are places you can go and get great fishing in that time of year, as long as you're willing to travel a little bit.
Cool. Comes back to the home water thing, I guess, doesn't it? And it's hard sometimes to leave your home water. But what I wanted to do was move on a little bit and talk about your book, Sea Trout Tips and Tribulations. Tricks and Tribulations. It's just a wonderful book. I think it sort of tells us just about everything we really need to know about sea trout in a modern format. And it was, to me, it always felt as though we hadn't really had an update from the days of the Hugh Fulkus book, really. I know there's been some other books around, but it felt to me as though it was probably needed. And was that part of your motivation? And was it part that you wanted to share all of this knowledge that you've accumulated over so many years?
It's the sharing aspect. It's a mentality. I was talking earlier again about you guiding as well. I think anglers, without getting too political, you tend to fall into a couple of different categories. You're either somebody that wants to give something back to the sport or somebody that wants to take from the sport. So I'm not going to get too political on that, but those two factions very much exist. For me, it's what can I, whether it's from fighting causes, helping somebody out, or from the guiding perspective, it's, if I can get somebody quite a few steps up the ladder rather than, more or less trying night fishing for a couple of nights and then giving up. I really hate the thought of that. So, I only have certain capacity to guide so many people's, so many anglers, in a given season. And then, but you want to open that reach up. So even from an article perspective, if I find something which I believe is of interest to somebody, I'm not, again, I will get political, but it's the kind of competition mentality. Oh God, no, you can't see my shade of yellow. It's that kind of mentality which doesn't compute with me. If I can share, I want to share. So somebody, it will heighten their own experience, or just give them hopefully that red letter, take one day. So for me, it was always about taking the sport forward, helping taking the sport forward, but helping people in the process. So the book was never an ego trip, for example. It was always about, let's put out what I've learned over the years from guiding, from personal fishing, from personal experiences, and not doing the likes of focus to service or to justice. It was, my obsession with sea trout has taken me to so many different rivers across the UK. So it wasn't even again, I'm not slagging focus off, but it wasn't a blinkered view of a private stretch of a given river. It was from, the likes of the Till, the Borders, the Nith, Yannon, this, that, and the other. So it wasn't just kind of, I tried this on a river and it worked. It was very much a broad spectrum of, what, I've applied my findings on, there was this little certain peculiarity on this river, but on the whole, what I put in that book, I'd be confident taking not just anywhere in the UK, anywhere in the world. The fish act the same, what they do is the same, the characteristics, whatever, it's the same. So what I try to do is just put it out there, and I've even included, I'm bait fish for a few years, and put some my bait fishing experiences down there, my spin fishing. I don't spin fish anymore, nothing against spin fishing. I like to make life difficult for myself nowadays. And that's, as tackle has evolved over the last few years, I think you can get away with not spinning in virtually any circumstances anymore, with all the different line setups and tips. Kind of on sharing experiences from across the world, Scandinavia, the steelhead guys, and all this kind of stuff. And that's a great thing. If you haven't got that closed door mentality, you just absorb different things from all these different groups, and you kind of, it does help you along. And that's the thing with the book. I'm not preaching to everybody and being dogmatic, saying this is how you have to do it. Read the other books. There's fantastic, Mock Morgan's book with Graham Harris, fantastic book. Orcus's book. Bible. It is a Bible, whichever way you want to look at it. Build your own roads. Take little sections, building blocks from each book, and build your own story, or build your own road, and see where it takes you. write your own book. I'll be first in line to buy this, and that's the way I look at it. It's we need we need to be more inclined to share rather than be closed book, quite literally. To take this forward, because we are under one roof, one umbrella, and nothing progresses if we're all kind of sitting on things.
And that really comes across so well in the book. It's such a practical guide that covers all the facets of it. And like you say, I think it's interesting that there is so much information to other rivers that pertinent that where you visited and the tips that you have from those. And to me, that's the sign of a really good fishing guide as well, that somebody wants to share, and you've not held anything back here at all. There's so much in here that even a seasoned sea trout angler would get something from. And I think that's really, really cool, because you could say, you could sell a load of days, hold stuff back, and then sell a load of days guiding or whatever it is. But there's no sign of that in there. Like you say, it's warts and all of the information's in there, and it's readily available for somebody to pick up that information. It must have been, over so many years and 30 plus years of experience, it must have been quite a Herculean task to sit down and say, right, this is where I'm going to start. Did you find that, or did you find that the book flowed really nicely and easily for you?
I got offered, so I'm not sure if I've even sent it to anybody. I got offered to write a book when I was on sea trout fishing, because what the gilly didn't tell you. It's quite cool, quite a cool concept. There's a guy in Ireland, Declan something, from the, I think it was on the Moy system, who was doing like the salmon version. This guy approached me for doing the sea trout version. I got to a certain stage and everything just fizzled out. I can't even remember. Never made it out. To be honest, I'm glad it didn't. You have to get to a stage and reflect, and then kind of go, yeah, I'm comfortable or confident in presenting this. And yeah, you can be enthusiastic or too much. I don't see myself as ever having an ego or being cocky. So I think it was enthusiasm at an early age, thinking, yeah, practice, cool, yeah, I can write a book, whatever. But no, I still don't know it all, still learning as you should do. The fish teaching new things every year, and we'll continue to do try. You never get there. So it was very much a process. Kind of mentally, it was a process for decades. To sit down and say it was always an intention to do it. Again, it was just basically, I want to help people out. How's the best thing to get that reach? That was the obvious kind of end goal. But I had to. You need that kind of end point. Okay, let's give yourself a target, and the target was the first my daughter's first birthday. So I set myself a target to have the book done by my daughter's first birthday. And you know what? No, I got into the flow of it, and I was doing. So she would wake up at I try to erase all this from my memory. So as a feeding timer, I was 5 o'clock or so it was regular every morning. Whatever it was regular. And then she would fall back to sleep. And I'm not sure if you're anything like me, Pete, but as soon as my brain kicks in, I ain't getting back to sleep. Not a chance. So I used it. I used that as I could either, and I was finding myself just messing around on the phone. I was like, what am I doing? I got this hour and a half every morning, not messing around, doing something constructive with it. I just started typing. And I was doing 1,000 words. Target was 1,000 to 1,500 words every morning. And I was achieving it. So I was literally, it wasn't edited. So I was literally writing, but I set chapters out. And that was the easiest thing for me, to set chapters out. So it's not a daunting thing of, you've got 300 something pages to write. It was literally sit down, set yourself a chapter. If you get bored of that chapter, go to another chapter, come back to it. And you know what? It worked. I literally then just plowed through it. But when you read, you're reading about how to structure all this kind of stuff. I remember reading, they were telling you writing the book is the easy part. What comes after is the hard part. I was like, yeah, whatever. What do they know? And I tell you what, you get through to setting out and you get through to editing and all that stuff. That is, pardon my French, boring. It is, it's not fun. It's not fun. So you get through but then you get to the fun stage. So I did everything. So I was I had a very much a vision in mind. So everything you see is home designed. I did everything, cover design, cover design, literally layout design, everything. I did, from start to finish, and that was fun. So I love geeking out with that kind of design aspect anyway. So I enjoyed the whole, but I saw so it was a bit of it wasn't just dipping my feet in. I literally went from never, publishing a few articles and stuff in magazines, sure, to writing a decent sized book. Not only that, kind of designing, from beginning to end, doing everything, to having them literally delivered to my parents' place by a big lorry in the middle of the snow, which got stuck and wanted to drop the books off 3 miles from my parents' house and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so it was, just a very cool experience to reflect on, and it wasn't doing any disservice against the publishers. There's amazing fishing book publishers and stuff out there. But I wanted that level of control, but also I wanted that experience. I wanted that to see it through from start to finish and to truly say, I created this, not, I wrote it and then passed it over and then they did the rest. It was very much, kind of sing the theme tune, write the theme tune, and that kind of, But it was fun. It was fun.
Well, I can't recommend it highly enough. It really is. The timing was just right, I think, as well. So many congratulations on that. And I can't recommend it highly enough. And I know what you mean about your baby as such. And we're similar with the magazine. And when it turns up, even now, you're excited to see how everything looks. And it must have been thrilling with something so beautifully put together. And the cover shot that's right up my street for starters. You had me at that. And then all the information that's within it. But this is a really tricky one then, because we're talking about the book. What is the most common thing that you see when you're guiding people sea trout that you think you need to advise them and say, look, perhaps think about it this way? What would be the one thing that you see that perhaps you could share with people today that would help their sea trouting a little bit? I know that's a very broad and wide question, but if there's one thing that you could choose.
You know what? There's always reoccurring themes. So you are talking about. So it's not actually as difficult as you would think. The problems that need addressing are nearly always the same problems. One is the tackle is not it's not matched or loaded properly. So a lot of the time, and the way I try and explain it every time is, if you're fishing, so home river, Ivy, if you're casting 15 yards, it's quite a long cast. At night, anyway, that's quite a long cast. So a lot of the time, the tapers and stuff on a standard fly line, which Joe Public turns up with, is primarily designed for lake fishing. That taper is they're not usually fishing the short bellies and all this kind of stuff. On the lake, you can watch your line beautifully turning over. The weight of the fly is not usually that bad, but again, most of the time, you have vision rather than feel acting as the overriding sense. At night, I see it every year, and that's why I'm saying I don't carry my own tackle. I do always carry lines with me, because I can always compensate for what goes wrong, and it's nearly always lines. You always see, I try and explain, in a river environment, you're not getting that head out of the rod tip, so you're not actually loading the rod. So by the time you actually get all of the your front taper rod out of the rod tip to essentially fully load your rod, you need bank or the trees or whatever, you're just not going to use it. So I try and advise people about, the short bellies or the overloading, just to achieve that weight quicker, which they can feel. You need to feel it, right? You need to feel what the line's doing, not listening. Listen to a certain extent. Well, I know what's going on before they do, for sure. I know if there's a tangle. The sounds after so many years, you know what's going on up there. But beyond that, it's getting to understand how that rod is loading at the shorter distances, and also then to turn over fishing. The surface lures. Actually, just got one in front of me there. You're talking about these big old surface lures. So I got one there. We're talking about 3 inches there, but there's a big surface area just to turn that over in the first place. Turning that over, if your line's not loading, it's just going to start hinging and not. It just doesn't get pretty, and they get frustrated. And if they didn't have me by their side to say, listen, this is what's happening. Let's put this line on. You'll be fine. They give up, which is sad. In my thing is, I want people out there on the river enjoying themselves, and that is definitely one of the things. So getting a line that loads nicely, which may be overloading on a lake environment, but from a river, what we're doing, turning those bigger flies over, turning them over quickly, that's what you need. Light colored lines as well. So when you're looking down on a river rather than worrying about what the fish is seeing from underneath, even though you could go into silhouettes and stuff, obviously lighter color, the weakest silhouettes and stuff. But anyway, for me, light colored, so yellow, white, pale green or whatever, those are the best lines at night, just because, and I tend to fish a lot of sink tips for that reason as well. You can just monitor a lot better and a lot more control. So light colored lines, I think pay dividends at night. Beyond that, then it's simple things like moving through a pool. I think it's at night people cannot gauging distances, and perhaps it's not familiar with the surroundings, the environment, whatever. At night, it's getting people to move through a pool and getting them to understand you're better off having 2 quick runs through rather than 1 slow run through. 2 quick runs with 2 different sets, for example, or flies or whatever, will outproduce 1 really slow move through. So it's getting them to move through. Simple things then, like you're not going to see the take like you may do in the daytime, and then it's kind of manipulating what they're doing to help them feel takes quicker. So such things as keeping the rod tip really close to the water surface. We're fishing. And that's a thing as well. The last 2 seasons now, I fish straight through 15-pound line, so it's like 0.35, thick stuff. Just these fish is not really shy. So when you start talking, but that's great as well for turning over flies. You get stuck in the grass, pulling the flies back, hooking a big fish, controlling the big fish, all these kind of things. So this fish is not really shy at night as well. So it's simple things like that. But it is getting people just to understand. Even if you are keeping the rod tip really close to the water surface, if there is a savage take, you're never going to snap off on a take. And it's just simple things like that. And keeping the flies moving, it's always better to fish slightly too quickly than too slowly for sea trout. And that's one perspective of working through a pool, but also the way you work the flies through a pool. But it's usually, it's pretty simple stuff. Usually you need to, a lot of the time it's in installing confidence in people, because it's at night. So I've done a bit of guiding in the daytime. I much prefer nighttime guiding, because you do find you have a very campy look. There's none of this wandering around, or let's try this, let's do this, let's try that. It's very much they're out of their comfort zone, and you have 100% concentration. 100% concentration. So, you're explaining angles, why we do certain things, certain spots, and all this kind of stuff. And you do find that nighttime guiding is very different to daytime guiding. Hence why, if I'm honest, I shy away from daytime guiding, but I do much prefer nighttime guiding.
Brilliant. Those were some fantastic tips. Thank you for that. Music to my ears, where you hone in on the importance of the fly line, which is something throughout these podcasts I've tried my best to get people to think about. So thank you for mentioning that as well. We want to move you away now to South America and a passion for visiting and fishing down there. And we were talking off mic. And is it 20 seasons you've been visiting South America now?
Yeah, so I literally started going back in the uni days. I literally with my good friend Julian. I'm sure he'll be listening to this at some point. But we would turn up in the likes of Rio Grande, town of Rio Grande, pick up supposed to pick up a 4x4, end up with a Volkswagen Polo, and then be camping for literally on the camping on the side of the rivers for I've been down there for weeks at a time. I think certainly up to 4 weeks, literally a month. So I've fished on Tierra del Fuego alone. I've fished over 10 main river systems on Tierra del Fuego alone. But spanning probably 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. So it's been going back down there. I had one winter off, but don't feel too sorry because I went to New Zealand. Otherwise it's been pretty much 20 years down there, and very much concentrating primarily on the sea trout front. Been to, I think there's only one lodge I haven't been to on the Rio Grande now, over the years and stuff. And it's the passion for sea trout, but also it's do as the birds do and fly south for the winter. It's I tend to go after I do a fair bit of shooting in the winter. It tends to be everything just dovetails. The pheasant shooting season, for example, ends on February the 1st, and I tend to then go down there down to Argentina then in February. And by the time he comes back, it's kind of coming into our spring, and winter doesn't feel so long. After all, it just seems you're kind of like okay, cool, nearly into March, and spring is on the way. And the obsession is sea trout down there. Literally started off as camping down there, but traveling through from the Argentine side to the Chilean side, and taking a boat around the coast in Chile. It's a kind of test fishing. Sounds like a test fishing new rivers, seeing what potential they had. Even been flown down to Navarino, which is an island even further south. Fished the south side of Navarino, overlooking Cape Horn. That was an amazing experience. Fair to say, the fish there I hadn't seen much. I literally had they had these brook char down there attacking my braided leader. I think it's fair to say they haven't seen much action. But we were talking about it earlier before. It's without the fish, fishing or the fish in the first instance gets us to some amazing places, whether that's in the UK or worldwide. It's without those fish, you get there, and like we were saying, there's plenty of reasons to be there, but to get there, literally getting over to, I'm 5 hours from London, so getting to London in the first place, flight then London to Buenos Aires, 13 hours. Then you got another internal flight of 3.5 hours. Then God knows how long on the road to get to somebody remote. But you need to have a drive to get there. When you get there, and there's places that I've been to now where there's massive roads being built beside them, and the rivers have been essentially killed by man. You can't put it any other way. It's been killed by man. Where back in the day I was catching steelhead and sea run char and all sorts of stuff in those rivers, and nowadays they're dead. But you're just fortunate to experience those places, or have the chance in a very fast-moving world to experience, to have places that are still so remote. And I think that's what drives me a lot about the travel side, is getting to places that are not explored, because not many of them exist anymore. Yeah, I've got one on my radar now with a couple of good mates, Nico, who runs Nico and Walton, actually two guys that run a very cool lodge down in on Tierra Fuego on the Rio Grande de Aurelia. We've got our sights set on a cool little island that we're looking to explore and all this kind of stuff. So there's always something. Yeah, there's always, what was that television program one time? There's always a river somewhere or something. Yeah. But yeah. Argentina, yeah, it almost feels like a second home. Obviously, there's the Welsh settlements as well in the central part. So in the early days, I always used to take in the sea trout. So I always used to go right down the bottom. But then there was also, I would always tag on time to go and visit different sections. All the way down to Argentina, from the Dorado right in the north to the amazing fishing. A very good friend, Luciano, runs Statue of the Verde on Jurassic Lake. Just an amazing, immense freak of nature type place. You just feel very fortunate you feel very fortunate in visiting and experiencing these places, but also it helps you appreciate what you've got at home. And that's a very crucial thing. You talk about the grass is greener on the other side and all that kind of stuff. Yes. But when you get there, you also kind of go, geez, actually, we haven't got it so bad. Or sometimes it helps you reflect on, and you can get frustrated with it, kind of thinking, geez, these guys have got it right. Look at how they're protecting this, or look how in a very short space of time they've managed to create this. You think, God, if only. But you can see then the potential of what could happen. But again, it does help you. Traveling helps you appreciate what you've got at home.
One of the things I mentioned in the introduction is the photography, and it was really the photography as well. And I remember from many years back, from when you were posting these, and I remember looking at images of your New Zealand trip and everything else. And that's been, your ability to take somebody like myself who's not been to Argentina to see these amazing rivers and amazing fish, that you took me there with such fantastic photography. So thank you for that, because I really, really enjoyed seeing those images many years back now, I guess.
Well, thanks for saying that. To be honest, it's thank you. That's really kind of thing to say. It's photography was always it's nowadays, if you're gonna try and make a living in the fishing world, you have to be, you need to have a few facets to your skill set rather than just being a good fisherman. So you don't need to be a master of any, really. You just need to be half decent writer, half decent photographer, half decent fighter, half decent angler. It's a better combination of being just one thing, because you become more effective in certain ways by being so. But sections of this history. But the photography for me, it's like getting to these places, and from a selfish perspective, to not have something to reflect on in years to come, to show your kids or whatever, would be selfish. But then, coming back and being able to share them with magazines like you guys, just paint a picture. That's saying paint a picture. So there's a couple of. I couldn't play an instrument to save my life, so I started DJing. So DJing took me to different parts of the world as well, which is probably something not many people know about my DJing side. But DJing, I couldn't play instruments, so it was almost like I was compensating for not being able to being pretty much tone deaf with any instrument. I'd probably play a triangle pretty. I wouldn't get me very far, I don't think. But it was that, and then it was the likes of photography was compensating for drawing or painting. I would love to do it. You look at Owen Williams, for example. I got a piece of his work on the woodcock front, and what's an amazing guy. He just environment agency licenses and stuff.
David Miller.
David Miller, exactly. Hell of a nice guy. Hell of a, his sea trout, so he just comes to life. Absolutely, and I'm immensely jealous of their ability. Immensely, I just can't do it. So for me, it was compensating. I would love to do it. So photography for me was a release, and also it was getting to these places. And again, so you can see behind me there, that for example, that's like a jumping dorado, a hooked jumping dorado I photographed in Bolivia, and that was something we found that was following us at the end of the day in Bolivia as well. Unnerving. But it is, it's getting to these places and then being able to share it, because a lot of people just, for whatever reasons, mobility, whatever, just won't be able to get to these places. And I think it's selfish not being able to share it with them in one way or another. And that for me is photography. It's my back at the end of the trip doesn't thank me for it though. You're carrying the lenses and all that kind of stuff. But you have to, if you want to get those shots, you're carrying the kit. It's as simple as that. But it's part of the process, and I enjoy it. It's a separate hobby, as is the writing, as is the fly tying. I see them as four very different compartmentalized hobbies within a hobby, and it's a means to an end. But the photography is, I love it, and it's, I'm still very much, as in fishing, whatever. I'm still very much learning, but enjoying the process, and yeah.
Good. That's fantastic to hear, and we're lucky to have you in fishing, Steph, as well. So that's absolutely great news. Tell me something. Is there a place that's eluded you? Is there one trip that has eluded you that you think, perhaps one day, or it's on the list already?
Yeah, actually, yes. Yeah, and it's really come to the forefront in the last. And it's I think any fellow angler, you get that itch, and sometimes you just there comes a point you just have to scratch it. And a lot of these places that the itch kind of, they're pretty off-piste places, and you kind of think, you've only got a set number of years to be able to make the most of those places. And the one for me is, there's two places you can really do it. It's the extremes in Japan or the extremes in Russia. So you toss the coin one way or the other. That's for the sea run Thailand. I think, I've seen pictures of them. They look so cool. I just love sea run fish anyway. It's not really the size of the fish for me. I don't really care how big the fish is. They look so cool. So I think, as a really out there trip before I get too old, I think the sea run Thailand is a tick box.
Yeah, I've seen those Japanese ones where they're chasing them with double handers, and it looks absolutely fantastic. So very, very good choice. Well, we've chatted for well over an hour now, and I'm going to start winding things down. But I know that you're tying flies at the moment. If people want to get hold of you for that, how do they get hold of you? If you want to tie anymore, I know you've been tying hundreds and hundreds, or are you at capacity?
I tie. It's when the season comes round, it's I tie enough for the box. Hence why I'm using 15-pound nylon. I usually get the trees back with the fly. So it's yes. The level of support has been absolutely immense. Just for I was doing some of sort of my favourite sea trout tactics, basically just all boxed up. This is like, I did them as more like a Christmas gift selection type thing, thinking there won't be much demand for them. My very girly hands have become quite manly with all the brute force from the bobbin recently. So that's one plus side. I am certainly maturing. But yes, I've been plowing about. I was doing like 50 a day. You got people like Sid Knight, who's done it for his life, and hats off to people who can. No, it's I'm just doing a few to tie me over quite literally tie me over the winter, Pete. But it's I can't see it becoming a fully fledged profession. I'd rather, sell somebody a book that's not only about sea trout but a good cure for insomnia. I'd rather sell them a book than tie myself down to the desk. But honestly, people that do it, hats off to them.
I think, perhaps I shouldn't have plugged that one, but I do want to plug this book, Sea Trout Tricks, Tips and Tribulations, because seriously, if you are a sea trouter or thinking about sea trouting, this is the one that I think you should be buying. How do people get this, Steph, if they want a copy?
So distributors, like to call them on the Sportfish, Game Fish up in Edinburgh. I don't want to miss anybody out now. There's been so many people that have been so kind. It's on Amazon, it's on eBay. If you want a personalised copy, so if somebody wants, dedicated to their angling mates, father, brother, whatever, just contact me directly. So you can contact me through Facebook, Steffan Jones. Or otherwise, probably through my website, which is fishing-wales.com. That's probably the easiest way.
Perfect. Well, like I say, I can't recommend it high enough. I'm not on commission or anything like that. I just think it's one of these things that if you are serious about your sea trouting, that you should have a copy. Steph, thank you so much for being such a great guest. We covered so much stuff and so much ground in this. It's going to be really interesting for me because I always listen to these before I put them out. It's going to make fascinating listening. But thank you so much for everything that you do in fly fishing, your passion for fly fishing, your keenness to share your deep knowledge and understanding of so many facets of fly fishing. So thank you. It's been wonderful catching up with you as always. And thank you for being a guest on the Fly Culture podcast.
No, thank you. It's I hope I haven't waffled on too much. And also, I hope you did press record.
Thanks, Steffan, very much indeed. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Fly Culture podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Plenty more, as always, in the line. And we'll be dropping some more of these for you very, very soon. But thanks for listening, everyone.
The Fly Culture podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly print magazine. For more information, please visit flyculturemag.com. You can also find Fly Culture on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.